I'm the Cryptid Huntress, Jessica Jones, and I'm ready to take you on a mysterious journey right now. We welcome you to Off the Trails right here on the Spaced Out Radio's YouTube channel. If you guys haven't hit subscribe yet, please do. We would appreciate that love. Shout out to Bumblefoot for that amazing intro music. I always appreciate that too. All right, you guys, please follow us on our social media sites. We've got Twitter, Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok, we're at Spaced Out Radio. You guys can find me at thecryptidhuntress.com, where I have a great website. You can follow along with all of my shows. I post every single day on that website. You can follow all of my, not only my shows, but all the events that I'm going to be speaking at, Bigfoot conferences, all that fun stuff. And any kind of other like news that I have is all posted there. Also, if you'd like to support what I'm doing, you guys can join my Patreon. That's the Cryptid Huntress. And also, I have a War Woman Goods shop over on Etsy, okay, where I sell vintage Native American jewelry, and that's a great way to support the Cryptid Huntress. So thank you. Big shout out to all my Patreon members and everybody who supports my shops and things like that. I love you guys so much. It means the world to me. All right, y'all. I have a fantastic guest here tonight. Don't I always? I have the best guests. I have Brian Minnick here with me today, and he's in the studio. You might know him from Montauk Is Strange on YouTube. Don't forget that right after this show, though, Marquise has a great show set up at After Hours. And so go join him right after the show is over tonight. Don't worry, I'll remind you right before the show's over. Okay? All right, y'all. Well, let's get to our guest tonight because we got a lot to talk about. Okay? Brian is a longtime Camp Hero researcher, having visited the base since his childhood and started exploring in a serious fashion in 1994. He's been involved in this research ever since. He's been on several cable TV shows on Montauk, including History, Travel, Science, and the CW, and has met and spoke with the authors of the original book series on several occasions. He shares all of his research and findings on his YouTube channel, Montauk Is Strange, along with Danielle, another longtime Camp Hero explorer, with a lot to share. Brian has been working on a book that is all about Montauk for the past 3 years, and he should be finishing that soon. We're going to bring him back when he gets that book published, okay? And so help me welcome to Spaced Out Radio. For the first time ever, we have Brian Minnick here with us today. Hey, Brian. Hey, Brian. Uh-oh, you're muted. Let's get you unmuted. Can you hear me? Let's see. Let's unmute Brian. Are you there? Okay. I can't hear you, Brian. I could hear you a while ago. Now I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Okay. Uh-oh. Here, let's fix the audio. I'm so sorry, everybody. Okay. Hold on. Let's work on this real quick because I still can't hear you. All right. Let's see. Everybody in the audience, can y'all hear me? Okay. I still can't hear you. Hold on. Let me go in the settings here. Yes, y'all can hear me. No sound for Brian. Okay, Brian, we're going to try to get your audio. Make sure your mute button's not pushed or anything, okay? So everybody can hear me. Hey, y'all. We're going to get this worked out. Hold on. Let me get Brian's let me work on his settings here. Okay, edit mic settings here. Okay, yours was muted. And now it's not. Okay, it says yours is muted, Brian. Go to the audio if you can. We're going to get this working. Check the mic in the StreamYard. Go down to the settings, Brian. Okay. I'm sorry, y'all. Hold up cue cards. Y'all are so funny. Yeah. Are you on that? No, still can't hear you, Brian. Okay. Hold on, y'all. We were hearing each other just fine before the show started. So, y'all, hold on one second. I do have a private chat here. So, let's see. I got to type it out. Brian, you also could log out and then log back in, and maybe that will work. Because it was working right before we went live. Yeah. So everybody, while we're working on getting the audio fixed, he's heading out, y'all. Okay, so Brian, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of background on Brian, okay? Because Brian came on my show at the Cryptid Huntress over on YouTube about a week or two ago with Long Island Bigfoot Mike. Y'all may know Mike, and everybody knows Mike, by the way. Shout out to Mike. And he we talked about Montauk Monster, so I had to bring him back on. Let's see. Here we go.
I think it's good now. I'm not sure.
You're working.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Oh, right. Excellent.
We can hear you now. Brian, thank you. Wait, you just muted again. You just muted again.
That's so weird. It did it on its own. Sorry about that.
Okay.
The first link was great, and then when I opened 2 StreamYard links at once, different ones, it booted me, I think. So.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
No, it's okay. Listen, we're here. We're here. It only took us a few minutes, and we are good to go, Brian. I am so happy to have you here. You are a dynamic guest with some amazing research out of Montauk, New York. And for the audience, in case anybody in the audience isn't familiar with Montauk, you guys, this is what Stranger Things was based off of, that TV series on Netflix. Okay. And so, Brian, you have lived there around the area most of your life, right?
Yes.
And you've been exploring Montauk, this base. It's called Camp Hero. And this may or may not be, which I think you say it is, right? The site of a secretive research project called the Montauk Project. So tell me a little bit about this. Tell me how you got into it, and let's go from there.
You got it. Yeah, it has a pattern. The base is a military base that's been actually active military base since this country began, and even before that, really, through the Revolutionary War. And it's always had a pattern of testing brand new top secret equipment, weapons. And, they don't seem as significant now because we're so used to things like radio. It's not exciting, but at the time they were rolling out a lot of new things at Montauk. So the pattern has always been a base, a testing base, and a base where they reveal some of our best stuff. I started going there back. A lot of people on Long Island, they will go to the lighthouse, which is at the very eastern extremity of Long Island, which is sticking out in the Atlantic. And there's nothing when you look out. You can, there's just open ocean. The next thing across is Europe, Africa, Australia, whatever direction you go in. I mean, so it's the end, they call it. That's what some of the bumper stickers you'll see out there say. Long story short, we used to go out there and then we would ride on bikes.
Oh, really?
Me and my friends would get on bikes. We'd park at the lighthouse parking lot, which is very close to the entrance of Camp Hero. So in exploring, we wandered right into the base, found an old bunker, climbed right into it, and started walking through the tunnels with no flashlights, And, I realized there was a base there, but I didn't realize it was a top secret. There was more to it until the books came out in like 91, 92. I got a hold of them in 93. And all of my friends, were in high school at the time. We would be ditching senior classes all the time, going all the way out because it's about 40 miles from where we were in high school. So we'd go out there on a day trip and just go run around the base. And after the fun wore off, we're getting chased around by the security. We started taking it more seriously. And I was really taking it seriously, taking pictures, videos, taking notes of everything and writing down each visit. So, each year we would visit about 12 times, probably once a month. Through the 90s, the mid 90s, and I had a small break in the late mid to late 2000s, but I've been going there my entire life pretty much. I was trying to count how many times I've been there. It's probably about almost 80 like all day trips at the base. So, and it's nice now you could drive right in and park. You used to have to walk like a couple miles to get into the base. So it's a long history of going to Camp Hero. So a lot of different opinions over the years that have changed,
Wow.
So yeah, it never lets us down. I mean, we don't go out there. Sometimes we just go there looking for military. Yeah. Sorry. If there's a lag, go ahead.
Well, no. So you were actually going there before any of this Stranger Things stuff ever came about, way before people even probably even had any idea that any project was going on there.
Yeah, way before, Stranger Things. I think it was like around 2010, after 2010, I think Stranger Things was becoming huge or starting at that point. I have to look at the exact date actually. But, there was a time where it was almost forgotten about. I thought like after they started turning it into a park, they really cracked down on the security even harder. And then after that, we got a ticket there. I got arrested there, actually. It was a trespassing ticket. And that was on video. That's on our channel. On one of the older videos, you can see them arresting us in it. So, they put that all over TV and everything. It's no secret. I even became friends with the state trooper that gave me the ticket, over the years. And we were talking about all kinds of, he was a cool guy. Long story short, I left it for a few years, and I was working in an office. And when the internet was first started becoming huge, I thought this is a fantastic way for me to dig in and find stuff about Montauk, because before that it's like word of mouth and visits to the library, looking things up. So I was just downloading and printing everything. I probably shouldn't have been doing at work, but I collected a huge, I started building a huge like archive then. And then I had like about 8 or 10 years where I just kind of forgot until the History Channel had gotten in touch with me. And I worked, I was on a show called The Dark Files with Chris Garitano and ex-CIA agent Barry Eisner. He writes like spy novels now. And investigative reporter Steve Volk from Philadelphia. I think he writes for the paper Philadelphia Sun or something. So those guys were kind of meeting me for the first time, and me meeting them for the first time on camera. And they were asking me all the questions, and I showed them everything. But they also paid me to do some research, like behind the scenes, and they used a lot of my photos and videos. So I basically got really back into researching. I dove in like way deeper than I ever dove before. After that, I never stopped researching. And then eventually started the channel, and that was partially thanks to Mike Long Island Bigfoot, pushed me at the time. I met him online through a comment, started talking, because he's local, and I thought it was fascinating looking in these woods for Bigfoot. And he said, why don't you just make a channel? And I said, you're right. Why don't I, why am I holding on to all this stuff and not sharing it when I could be making it, public for everybody to have? So that's basically what got us to start it. So, and, Danielle is my wife that also goes with me to the base. And I've dragged her along in the beginning, since we met. And she knows a good deal about the base through osmosis. And also she's really good with feeling out the property, when we're there. I'm more analytical. She's more of a feeler, like a sensitive kind of person there. So it's good to have different people, to go with different people. Everybody has a great, new way to look at things, different input. So I enjoy going with others. As many people as I can.
I mean, I know a group of people heading up there next month.
Great. Yes.
And so there's people that claim to be involved directly in the Project Montauk. And Project Montauk involved kidnapping of children and just regular people, children, telepathy experiments, and portals to other dimensions and things like that, time travel and all that. And I'm really big into all of this stuff because, I do remote. I always say I'm a remote viewer, right?
Yes,
and the people that have been involved in those programs, who I'm actually friends with personally, they claim that they were actually taught remote viewing in some of those programs and things like that. So
that's very cool. Stuff. I mean, I'd like to meet, and I haven't got to hear a lot of their stories. And I do know several people who said they've been involved and on different levels. One was on a few of the shows with me, and that's how I met Joe Lafreno. And he's got a pretty good backstory. And I've also met a whole bunch of other people who've come to me over the years. I've listened to their stories and stuff and included them all as they told them to me. But there's also local people who feel like they've been involved who don't tell anybody at all. Like you bump into them somewhere and they tell you this, but they don't even talk online at all about it. So there's these people out there who are not even found by others that are also feel like they've been involved. So, there's a phenomenon about having dreams about working at Montauk or so on and so forth, something similar to that. I've even had dreams that I started dreaming. Montauk used to have not just one radar, but like 6 radars on Radar Hill, which is like where the big radar is now. the AN FPS 35 Sage radar. That's the only one that's left there. But there used to be all these golf ball looking radars. They're called radomes. It's like a radar inside of like a bubble, a rubber bubble, and it turns, but it looks like a bunch of kind of like golf balls. But yeah, you can see that pedestal there on the artwork that you're showing. The one to the right and the pink one on the left both used to have those radars on top. And there were 6 of those. There's one behind, you could kind of see the railing. But long story short, I used to dream that I worked at these places all around the world. And like, one was in a cornfield, one was on like the water, and I like saw across the bay. And I just thought it was strange. It was a weird phenomenon. Like you're dreaming of like this other life you're having. And each night you're working at this place. It's like reoccurring, But I didn't, because of the way I'm trying to investigate Montauk and to show people who don't believe in this kind of stuff at all. I'm trying to build like a real circumstantial case with evidence and stuff, at least in the way of showing some things did exist through like the military history and gaps in the service that line up with the story. So I've left out like a lot of my own personal thoughts and experiences on the subject, because that's one thing, the first thing they'll grab and use against you to like try to make your research not credible. So I try to keep those separated.
Right.
But I do know a lot of people who have told me a lot of crazy stuff. So it's very interesting, and I'd love to hear more with everybody that you might meet up with. That'd be cool.
Oh, absolutely. Now, okay, so this just made me think of something that for some reason I felt inclined to post something on my Instagram this morning, and it was something that I watched a video. I can't remember the guy's name. He has a YouTube channel. He's former CIA. He's like a whistleblower, kind of a Marine or something. I can't remember. I'd look it up. Okay. I'm sorry, I don't have all my info.
No, it sounds familiar.
But they were talking about how fast food companies are they're doing something where they're putting commercials into the ethers while we're sleeping, basically. Now, they didn't just get that technology. They didn't come up with that technology by themselves. Okay. No. Like Mickey D's is not telling me I need a Big Mac while I'm sleeping. I'm not dreaming about that out of nowhere. Someone came up with this technology, and with all of those radars and all this infrasound and all this stuff that could potentially been going on for years, because you got to think like anything they're showing us, anything that's public, is like 100 years behind technologically. What they're telling us. Okay, like we are getting like the 1950s stuff right now in 2023.
Absolutely. Yeah,
right?
We really.
So what could it be? Do you think that they could have been actually sending out radar, like some kind of sonar, some kind of infrasound to everybody in the Montauk area to test them to make them think that they had been abducted or in that program?
There's we kind of went into like proving some of that with in the kind of documentary we did on the LSD house that used to be at Montauk. They call it the acid house, where they did obvious drug experiments in the 1961. We pinned it down to it was a part of MK Ultra, but right that same year they wrote a paper. A scientist with the last name Frey wrote a paper called the Frey effect, and it's called the microwave auditory effect, and that means the people who discovered this were the first radar technicians in the end of World War II, when they started using radars, which they had some of the first radars in World War II at Montauk, several of them.
Okay.
But those are the guys who discovered the auditory effect. So if microwave is on, you could hear 4 different sounds that they catalog, like a clicking, a hiss, a pop, or like I forgot the fourth one, a click or a buzz, something like that. So tinnitus is another symptom of it. So long story short, radio is the radars use microwave. That's what they are. They're microwave radars. And the towers that we all use for our cell phones that you see across the entire world, they disguise them as like trees. They put them on
palm trees.
Yeah, exactly.
Pine trees.
Those are emitting. Those are omnidirectional microwave antennas, and they're just emitting microwave out in every direction. So that's what 5G is. They just turned it up another gig. It's not a big deal because 6G will be next, and then 7. It was at 1, 2, and people were freaking. Yeah, they are beaming energy out into the air, and in that energy is all the information on everybody's cell phone. Everything we're doing all day long is bouncing around. So if the human brain is susceptible enough, sensitive enough to pick up this information, on a subconscious level, we must get images. And I'm sure the first 2 things people do with technology is either create a weapon or create something to make money with. So what you said about the fast food makes 100% it makes scientific sense that it's feasible, and also it makes sense that they would do it. They have a reason to do it for a profit.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Now, I also, so
crazy.
I saw another video, and I know people are divided on the David or Ike, whatever his name is.
David Icke,
Right?
yeah, I
Yeah,
call him
people.
David Icke. I really don't
I
know.
I think that he's got very good information he's putting out. Whether he's whoever, if he's somebody's feeding him information or whatever, it doesn't matter. He's putting information out there.
He's
Okay,
great at compiling. Yeah,
he is, and so he
yeah.
was on a YouTube channel called Inspired, which I'm subscribed to,
Oh,
and
cool.
on I guess it was Thursday morning because I had Barry Littleton on my show that night, or
Oh,
it was
cool.
Wednesday morning, and we were talking about dark entities coming through the 5G cell towers, and how they're sending out some kind of signal that is taking the veil away, like where we're actually able to see into other dimensions now because of this new technology that we have, and it's bringing dark entities into our reality, and they're dwelling here and they're not leaving. Okay,
I mean,
and
yeah. I mean, it doesn't. It sounds crazy at
it
face
does.
value, but it scientifically could make sense if there is a veil and it has any part of a physical aspect at all. Then
Hmm.
these particles also are partially physical in the sense of a wave. They can hit something, and
Yeah.
then they could disrupt something. So if they could easily, if there's something there, a veil, it could be messed with or ripped open, and then whatever's on the other side will obviously come through or pour out. Who knows? Dark,
Yeah.
light, whatever it may be. So it's not a crazy theory to me. I love stuff
Yeah.
like that when people think outside the norm.
Well,
So that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Long Island Bigfoot Mike, thank you for
Yeah.
that super sticker. He's in the chat.
Oh, cool. I
Two
can't see
legends
the
on one.
chat.
He says 2 legends on one screen. That's
Oh,
so
that's
sweet.
awesome.
That is very
Thank you.
sweet. And yes, and with you on here, it makes 3. Okay, Mike. Thank you. That's amazing. Yeah. There's just so many there's endless possibilities as to what all's going on with all these mind control programs. I mean, to have I don't watch a whole lot of videos and things like that if I don't have to, but I do, occasionally I'll pick up one or two.
Yeah.
The one about the fast food industry putting information into our dreams, and
Yeah.
like I said, it didn't come from anywhere. I mean, it didn't just come from nowhere.
Yeah.
And I think it may have some kind of connection to Project Montauk potentially.
Yeah.
After World War II, they say that a lot of the Nazi scientists actually came here and started working on Project Paperclip, and
Absolutely.
they were part of Project Montauk, or the Montauk Project. Is there any
Yes.
evidence of that you found?
Yeah. I mean, after everybody knows Paperclip, we brought back all of the best minds to the U.S. So out here,
Okay.
there were a couple bases out in the water, like on the east end of Long Island. There's 2 peninsulas that kind of split like this. So
Okay.
in all the islands and stuff out here, out in the water, there was like little forts on each one for coastal defense. So after World War II, they scrapped all that. We don't need to shoot at people off the shore anymore. They turned them into science facilities. So they took over right after World War II. They turned Plum Island, which was Fort Terry. They turned that into the animal. First, it was the chemical warfare lab for 4 years. Then they turned it into the animal disease Science Center. I mean, basically, the Department of Agriculture took it over instead. Brookhaven
Okay.
National Lab, which is a famous place where they have particle accelerators like this that are
The Hadron
sisters to
Collider.
CERN. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
The atom colliders.
Alice.
So
Okay.
yeah, and they work directly with CERN. So second to CERN is BNL in the world,
Okay.
and that was Camp Upton. They turned that into BNL, Brookhaven National Labs. And the third one, Montauk Point. This is something me and Mike were talking about: the Long Island Triangle. Plum Island, BNL, Montauk, Camp Hero. Mike's idea actually, but it's very good one.
Okay.
The third one, Camp Hero, was an old offshore defense, and they turned that into top secret radar was being developed for the first time. And I have proof of MIT had a lab right at Montauk with the very first radar, and they have a 4-story underground beneath that, because to run that equipment you need like 2 floors of air conditioners, 1 floor of generators, etc. So that equipment doesn't fit in this little building. And I found all the proof, that there's underground there. But they started with just radar, and they continued with the pattern at Montauk to bring stuff in. So like you were saying, by the time the 70s were there, like the Cold War was top security there. And then all of a sudden in 1970s, the base was like lax security topside. Kids were riding their bikes in, and they had bands on the weekend. People were playing. Locals would come in and go grocery shopping. They barely had any security, and all the people that worked there in that decade said, "Oh, nothing was happening," and there really wasn't anything on the surface happening. It was the perfect, like, almost like. And the thing is this: AdTac closed them down in 1969. The airstrip that, you know, Montauk told these jet fighters when to take off in West Hampton, that closed down, that airbase. So they shut everything down, and this base remained open for 12 years, from 1970 to 1983. I mean, for more than that, 13 years, where they had no mission in particular. So in that time, I believe they took the old fallout shelters that they built in 1960s, which I have proof of from Freedom of Information documents I got from the very veterans who work at the base. I'm on their Facebook group. And in that, it shows that they built these fallout shelters. So like in the 70s, what did they do? Just like leave these really expensive underground places? They probably my guess is that they just converted them into lab space. Because if you want to dig deeper and you're already underground, it's best to start from a place that's already underground instead of digging from the top all the way down. It's less expensive. So I believe, like you said, remote viewing was done in the 70s. And I asked you last time if you thought Stanford was the first, you know, the Stanford research. And if that was the first, I guess Montauk would probably be like the same year later, or like a year later. They probably did that at Montauk, because they would jump right on it also. And I go to DARPA too, the website, to see what their achievements were. And they say literally on their website, like when I did the LSD room, you know, case for 1961. In 1961, ARPA government website says their achievement for the year was Project Agile, which was psychological warfare. So I mean, they kind of say these things, like energy weapons were in the 70s, so that's like particle beam weapons, microwave, audio, any kind of directed energy lasers. So I believe they did all that stuff in any kind of lab they had there, plus other stuff. So that's the stuff they admitted, like you said. So what is the stuff that they didn't admit?
A lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. Absolutely. And, you know, well, the remote viewing, actually, I think the United States, I don't know if they admitted to doing it back, but they did it during the Cold War. Okay. And that's kind of when they say they started, because Russia was using remote viewing in the Cold War. And so they had to counter that. So they started utilizing remote viewing and training their, you know, special people to do remote viewing for them. And so that would be about the same time frame that Montauk was running. Absolutely.
You probably, that's a little earlier even, like you said, they probably, like, that's new, but that makes more sense that they had the idea, somebody else did it, and then finally set up Stanford. You know, I'm sure they didn't set up Stanford like right away.
It's not exactly, these timelines are all different, and they tell us one thing, but it's really something else. I don't trust anything I'm told anymore, especially after remote viewing stuff, especially historical events. I don't believe nothing about nothing anymore.
I believe more people's, like, a remote viewing I would take, because there's a lot of mistakes in history. Like when I was doing the history timeline, I'd find two things that were totally different. And then once you kind of figure out what it was, you could see people are mixing stuff up over the years, because really you're dealing with stuff that doesn't exist anymore. So it's kind of hard to get a real, but a remote viewing would be a more accurate reading, if you ask me.
Could be. You know? It could be. It depends. Absolutely.
Or if you blend it in with the facts that are on record, it might be even more of a combine them. Like,
it's hard to argue with a blind target where we're given a set of numbers and we come up with a lot of data that pertains to whatever that target was. It's really hard to argue with that, honestly. But cool. still people want to argue with it. They don't want to believe in remote viewing, and that's okay. I do this for entertainment purposes only, y'all. Okay. So,
exactly. Yeah.
Here at least.
Too. Yeah. It's mostly fun investigation, you know.
It is. And what else is fun is Derek Galloway. Thank you, Derek, for being here. By the way, Derek said you're the guru of Montauk, by the way, earlier today. I saw that comment. The chat.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. I saw that, Derek. Thank you so much. You are the sweetest. We appreciate you here at Spaced Out Radio very much. And I think Dave and Timmy, little Timmy Senor are out hunting Bigfoot tonight, not hurting them, but just hunting them. So thank you for that super chat. We appreciate that. Okay. So you mentioned earlier, Brian, Plum Island. And I think a lot of people, when they hear, so I titled the show that you and I did before with Mike, Montauk Monsters. Now, when people hear of Montauk Monsters, this is what they think of. Let me pull this picture up. because there was a strange animal that washed up on shore near Plum Island. Some people say it was a bloated raccoon. Y'all turn it off if you don't want to see this. It's a, oh, let me take that comment down. Hold on, y'all. I'm sorry. Let me take this down. Okay. Hold on one. There we go. Okay. Is that a raccoon? What do you think?
I've never, I don't think there's a fly on it, right? So that's what they use for size on its back there, that house fly. So I don't recognize it as a raccoon. I know animals, obviously don't look the same after they've been in the water. So there has been a lot of, copycats of this. So I haven't ruled it out, but what has got me, like, I left my thoughts open on this, but I have an old video where we're in the tunnels. It's probably the only video on YouTube that has footage inside one of the tunnels. And it's, we had these flashlights to put a spot on the wall like this big. They were terrible, like a little yellow dot. And they were like all plastic back in the 90s. That's kind of like what we grabbed from our parents' cabinet or whatever. So, you can't see anything. But at one moment, we see this head on the floor. And it is graphic. Like it bothers me to even watch it sometimes. And I thought it was a dog all these years until I saw the Montauk Monster. And I look at the ears in the video and the ears on that thing, and it looks almost identical to me. And this was just sitting on the floor in the middle of the tunnel, and we were just like, whoa, who would do this? Why would they do it? But maybe it was another predator that did it to it, a bigger animal. Who knows what's in there?
Could be.
I mean, it's weird. But so I met these people, these kids out there, and one of them told me that was his dog or his friend's dog, and it got lost in the ocean. And
but it had a beak.
It has a beak. Like, so he told me it was a pit bull and that people were fighting over it. And the story that I found online is that all these people that did actually find it, they were actually fighting over the carcass, and they put it in somebody's front yard, the body, and then it went missing. So this kid that I met told me it was my friend's dog, and it had a pet chip tracker, like a microchip, info pad or whatever. And they went and found the dog and took the body home. So I don't believe really anybody, that's because this was such a sensation that went viral. There's people popping out of the woodwork with crazy stories. So I really don't know who to believe, but to me, it doesn't look like a dog. It doesn't look like a raccoon. I mean, it's up in the air. And being that I saw the thing in the tunnel, I consider that there's other things floating around, because the more interesting story about Plum Island is that a human body washed up there that was really tall, really long fingers, and they couldn't tell what race he was. They changed it in the paper a few times, and they found this human there. And this is the craziest part. He had 6 trepidation holes. He had 6 drill holes in his head, like trepidation holes drilled. And it's in I have the police sketch of this. Like, they drew a sketch of the body, and it's weird. It has like long fingers. Oh
my gosh.
They took it off Google almost completely. I can't find a nice clear image. I have like a really bad little JPEG, but somewhere in my like thousands of files folders, I have the original somewhere. So I've been looking for it like crazy, because I want to make that into a video as soon as I find it. But I have all the police reports and everything about them finding this, and it washed up literally on Plum Island. Then there's a video on YouTube too of somebody who swears they found a film canister from like the 50s, and it does have all the proper effects. It looks legit, and they filmed this other creature that was on Plum Island. So another last thing about Plum Island, like my sister, she worked at B&L as an intern, but my grandfather back in the day, he was like a crazy lineman for AT&T, which is like the local phone monopoly in like New York, Ma Bell or whatever. So he was like a lineman who rigged wires in like crazy places. They didn't want to send anybody else. So like in the middle of like a Project Riot, he was climbing up the buildings, and they sent him through a tunnel he had to crawl. So they sent him to Plum Island because he would do all this stuff. And he told me literally spent the whole day just showering on each level going down. He couldn't remember how many levels, like 3 or 4 levels he went down and showered. And then he went down, fixed one little like wire or something, and then showered the whole way back up and then out the ferry home. So he said it took like the entire day to fix like a 2-minute wiring thing in the basement, or down a few levels. So there is indeed an underground there, as you would expect. So that's the only verification, 100% verification that I've heard or trust about, an underground there. They keep it very secret, but it was a chemical warfare place at first, and then only for 4 years. And then there was an outrage in the US about chemical weapons, so they turned it into animal research, and they were originally going to put it at Montauk at Camp Hero. They looked at it and they said, no, it's not a good idea, because right next door is like the very first cattle ranch in the entire country. Like the very first cowboys in the US were at Montauk, which is crazy.
Wow.
You think they'd be out west, but in like the 1600s, the first cowboys were come from Montauk. So this, being that they're studying bovine disease at Plum Island, it was kind of foolish to put it right next to a place that has all these cattle, if something broke out. But now what they did was move Plum Island to Kansas, right next to a giant cattle farm. So, I mean, the whole...
Well, what's the deal with that? Because you got to think about like all the cattle mutilations and stuff like that. I wonder if there's a connection.
Yeah. It could be. I mean, it's so bizarre. And I've been starting to think of the Camp Hero property in the sense of almost in the lines of Skinwalker Ranch, because it seems to have like so many different things going on. Each time we go there, we catch phenomenon. We don't plan to. We just try to, like, say we're recording something for like the historical aspect. We just look back later, and there's always stuff either in the skies, in the woods. We catch EVPs, disembodied voices. I mean, I've seen a shadow run across the road once there, but never too much with my open eyes. But I did hear. We all heard aloud a disembodied voice in the radar that sung out to us, and we all answered it. We said all at the same time. We go, huh? And then we just laughed because we didn't know what it was. And a second later, something pushed this giant cabinet or metal thing over upstairs, like a floor above us. And I don't know if it was trying to keep us off the floor. So we went back and did a little SLS and spirit box in there, which we usually wouldn't do at Montauk. But we figured, last time we heard all these EVPs, so why not? We actually wanted to use SLS and spirit box in the woods because people don't usually do that. So we figured try it in a different way. But we use a lot of little gadgets and stuff once or twice. We don't keep sticking with them, but I'll pretty much try everything to gather data. Like I made my own like infrared poor man's FLIR. Basically, it's an infrared camera that only films infrared light. You get the picture. Like I'll try almost everything to get a different
Good
look.
for you.
So
that's great. It's part of researching. You don't know it till you try it, and exactly. There's something there, and it's by whatever means you need to use. You can figure it out. I mean, we were using an SLS camera in a cave that I was investigating on a property about a month ago. And cool. and that was actually we were going to look for cryptids like Bigfoot and Dogman, skinwalkers even. But the most evidence that we actually picked up that entire weekend was from the SLS camera, and it was like a giant figure that kept a couple of giant figures and little tiny ones that were accompanying it in the cave.
We saw some of that. That's interesting.
Yeah, very weird.
Caves too have some crazy audio on different videos I've seen. There's some weird stuff you'll hear in caves.
Yeah. And Long Island Bigfoot Mike, who's in the chat. Hey Mike.
Oh, nice.
Again.
He
was talking about or he's actually showed us, he didn't just talk about it, he showed us pictures of what he believes to be Junior, the Sasquatch that is the resident Sasquatch there at Montauk.
Yes. Yeah. So the book printed a picture of Junior that was really hard to see. It was black and white, really dark. And that was the only picture, and that was taken by Preston's friend. But then they dedicated the book to him, Jan, I think his name was. But then another pair of guys flew over in a helicopter and took a picture of the other door, from the other direction, I mean. And then there's this third picture where these photography guys went out from Brooklyn. They wrote a book on it, and they did a bunch of other stuff, but they took a picture to try to find Junior, and they did get another picture, which I think is the best one of Junior. And that's the one so hard to find. You can't find it in Google image search at all. The only way to find it, it's in a book, and you have to read PDF preview of a book on Google. That's the only way you can see it. But I have all three. I was going to send them to you last time. And I was sick, but I'm going to send them over to you. So you have the three different pictures of Junior. And the interesting thing is, in all the pictures, there is a dark spot that looks like a Sasquatch. And if you zoom in, you could almost see the facial features, but it's in different spots. It's in the same area, but not in the very same spot. So if it is a dark tree, it should be in the same spot. That's the only thing that's interesting about those photos being looked at all three together, is that it is in different places. So some people have said that that's just a tree, but then shouldn't it always be in the same spot, if it's a tree? So, I
mean, we saw some very convincing pictures from Mike Long Island Bigfoot here. Um,
Yes.
of Junior, of it very clearly looks to be a Sasquatch.
Yes.
Looked like it was ducking behind a rock or something, actually.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of pictures of Bigfoot or alleged Bigfoot. That looked legit. Okay, so
Yeah. Yeah.
that was
Absolutely.
legit. I trust him absolutely.
Me too. And I believe there's things, all around us at all times. It's just a matter of seeing, what's just beyond our dimension, our reality, whatever, way you want to look at it. It's basically the same premise that they're
Yeah,
here, just out of sight, out of reach. But
that's right.
certain people can see them, certain angles, maybe certain times. I don't know how exactly it works. Maybe sometimes it's the person's mindset. Like if you're receptive to it, if you're open, or if you're respectful, maybe you'll be allowed to see it. It.
Mhm.
I'm not sure, but Mike has, he knows what he's doing as far as how to. And I've gone with him and I've recorded stuff just the same, and it's amazing. Even at Montauk recently, in my trips there since starting the channel, in our trips there, on the very first trip, we got something on tape. It looks like either like a canine face, but a Bigfoot almost behind a tree, looking right at us, like 20 feet away. And the thing is, I walked past the tree and I filmed. There's nothing behind it, and it's just seconds later we turn around and this thing is right there. And that just set me right into it. And that's the same day when we pulled in, I saw a dark shadow run so fast across the road, really tall, skinny, dark shadow. And I've been trying to figure out what that was ever since. I keep talking about it. Everybody's like, yeah, I know you saw shadow. But to me, it was like so striking. I know I saw it. So we went back there on our way out last time. We stopped quick and we put the SLS there just for, giggles. And there is this thing running at the camera, just in place, just like it ran across the road, kind of. So I was like, that's enough for me to consider it and look again, And
Okay.
another time, I was telling you, on the lighthouse web camera, you could look, at the ocean. And one day, there's this rock there. It's always there. One day, something was standing on the rock, and I thought, oh, that's a person. But then I realized it's way too tall to be a person. So I watched this thing for almost 30 minutes, waves hitting it, crashing on it, and
Whoa.
it's barely swaying. It just stood there, and I knew it was alive because it was swaying front and back, And then I keep
Yeah.
checking the rock. Every time I check the webcams, I look at the rock. There's never anything there anymore. But it was there that day, and I took a screenshot of it. So I don't know what that was. Is it the same thing I saw run across the road? Was it Junior? Was it other things? I believe that there's other things going on there, but I also start thinking that maybe Junior is something from that's always lived on the land. It is a
Yeah.
native land. It was a Native American village partial there. The main village was more closer to town, but I maybe one of these portals, or like Duncan says that he created big Junior, but maybe what he did was just tear a hole, like you said before, and
Yeah.
something that's always lived in that area came right out. Maybe he didn't exactly conjure him, maybe he just tore something open and Junior's already
Yeah.
been there. I don't know.
Well, I think
It's
with all the experiments that they've been doing there, and they're giving us soft disclosure with the Stranger Things TV series. Okay,
yeah,
that
yeah,
soft disclosure, they're telling us what they did.
yes,
They make it funny and they make it entertaining, but long story short, that's
yes,
kind of what they were doing to children, and they even brought the LSD part into it. And I mean,
yes,
I think her
yeah,
mother, Eleven's mother, was supposed to have been in a program like that where she was on
yes,
drugs and stuff. Um,
exactly, yeah.
so, but
And the
I
monk
mean,
over there,
there's absolutely, and especially if they have like a hadron collider and all that stuff, they're opening portals and rifts in time, and there's a whole lot to do with teleportation and time travel,
yes.
and I mean the things that does to our reality as we know it. I mean, look at this Mandela effect we got
I was
going
just
on,
going to say
Brian.
that the
Right?
Mandela effect. Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of, and a lot of people blame that on like what I showed you, the mouse pad last time. The collision that they do with BNL, the atom collider, making mini black
Yeah.
holes and many new universes, or trying to see if they'll form a new universe. Well, one of those, the first time they did it, maybe could have caused a glitch. Like a lot of people blame CERN for Mandela effect, but that experiment was actually done at BNL as well multiple times. So whoever did it, it's a plausible thing to think, that, and deja vu almost seems like a ripple, also like reality just changed or so ever so slightly, or
Yeah.
it could be many things. I've thought of many reasons for deja vu, but I also thought it could just be something just changed everything that is, and we'll never know what it
Yeah.
was. Something like
It's
that.
It's so weird. It's
It
absolutely
is.
weird. And
Time travel
also
events.
and speaking of teleportation and time travel, we have the Philadelphia experiment.
Yes. Yes.
And that has some connection to Montauk in some way.
Yes.
And I think that some of the fellows that I know that are heading up there next month, they're there to see if potentially the Philadelphia or the USS Eldridge shows back up
Yeah. So
there
it's like 80
next month.
years, right? Yeah. It's supposed to
Mhm.
be the August 12th biorhythm, and then the date of October 28th. That's the one thing I'm trying to pinpoint, the difference between them. But Philadelphia experiment was roughly, 80 years ago. And everybody does, they think it will, if it was linked, like they said, to Montauk, then they think it will appear there. So it's worth being there to check out. And if you can't be there, like, some of us are going, you can look in the same direction we'll be looking from the Montauk Lighthouse web camera on that day. You can look over the ocean in the same direction we'll be looking there. So, if something does happen, it will be recorded on by that webcam at least, which is cool.
Ooh, the webcam.
Yeah, on
That's
the
a cool
lighthouse.
thing to have. The
It is. I
webcam,
use it.
man. And well, and also, okay, so Glenn has a good question. What's the UFO
Oh,
activity like in that
awesome
area?
question. I've since I got one in 2004, which is crazy. It's like a metal ball that's flying. It's like riding next to my car, and when I got out, it just shoots up into the sky. It's like small, and it gets real tiny, real fast. It just almost like right up into space. So I saw that back then, but then since we've been going, we caught several of them. What like I like to zoom in on planes just to test like my zoom focus, and I zoomed in on this little biplane, and one goes flying right past, and then I slow it down. And it looks like a little metal disc. Like it's incredible. There I've caught a couple. I think 5 or 6 now. And one or two
Oh
might be
my
something
gosh.
else. Maybe I misidentified, but that many. And take a look at them. I'm actually going to put them all together into one video, and that way, it'll be easier to watch for everybody. But yeah, I think there's stuff going on a lot, and it's probably just because I'm not always filming the sky that we're not seeing them as much. But there's also historical reports of UFOs in Montauk. Like there was a UFO flap, they call it, in
Okay.
1961. Uh, they had uh, 18 reports in East Hampton Town and Montauk. So that was all in like one part of the 60s. But also there's this really two interesting ones, 1 year apart. The first one in 58, it went straight to Washington, D.C., to the White House. I have the memo, like the official document. They caught this UFO flying over Montauk, and they started tracking it across the country, like from one radar station to the other. And then they lost it. It was going like 6,000 miles an hour. And they sent that, they thought it was a Soviet weapon or something. So they sent it right to the White House. Then a year later, almost identical, another UFO, Montauk radar picked it up first. They tracked it across the country, lost it. And I have both those documents. So I thought that was crazy. There's a long history of UFOs there, as far as I know.
Whoa.
And to this day, it's a great place to go looking for them. Not to mention all the
Wow.
city lights. It's so far away from all the lights of suburbia, Long Island. The stars are beautiful. You can see everything out there. So on a good day, I would
Oh
recommend
my
it to look
gosh.
for UFOs there.
What is the general feeling like out there? Like when you go out there, is it ominous and scary, or is it serene and nice? And okay, that's
Good
part
question.
one to the question, and I got part two. Do
Okay.
you think that there is still an active underground facility there today?
Ooh, two good questions. Okay. The
Okay.
first one, the vibe has changed, but when you used to go there, it was more ominous and creepy in a way, like especially around all the old buildings that were still like there was no graffiti back then when we first started going. So it really looked like this semi-manicured
Okay.
place that was abandoned, and it always felt like somebody's watching you from whichever direction. So now I notice there is a change there. You still have these high energies there, like there's a lot of feelings. Whatever they may be, but there's also like a beauty of nature, and there's like some kind of peace there. But there's also this activity that I don't remember from before. Like I don't remember seeing so many things in the sky or the woods, or just even the paranormal stuff that we experienced in the radar. I've been in the radar so many times, and I don't ever remember hearing a disembodied voice or catching EVPs to that extent. I did catch a weird thing on camera audio back in the 90s, but it sounded like a radio transmission that was on loop, and it plays throughout the whole 45-minute video, the same thing. It's like a recording that was just running. And
Interesting.
yeah, I'm going to try to isolate it. It's so low, but there's some other weird sounds. This weird sound in one of the buildings. It's like an old alarm that seems to go off, like a Cold War like warning system or something, and that scared the heck out of a
Whoa.
few people. It just goes off out of nowhere. But
Wow.
I don't remember the way it seems to be getting stronger at Camp Hero, like it's becoming more alive, and maybe because like maybe the underground isn't active anymore, leading into the second question. I
Okay.
always try to figure out, I know the underground was active until a certain date. And even in the 80s, when they shut down the base topside and it was a ghost town, I still believe they had stuff going on down there until there must have been some kind of accident when everything closed. And I've heard, through most of the writings about it, that there was, flooding, disaster. They had to rebuild things. So I think they were trying to salvage things in the 90s. Is it still active now, another 20 years into the 2000s? That's a good question. Like they'd have to maintain it. They'd have to get in from far away. They'd have to take like a train, like a maglev train. Maglev trains were invented in 1968 at B&L, by the way. So, I mean, it wouldn't be a stretch to actually run one, only 50 miles or 60 miles, maybe at the max, to Montauk. But why? It would be because they have a significant investment already down there. And so the books say that there's a buried UFO at Montauk, actually.
Buried, huh?
Yeah. And I think, and me and Mike have talked a few times about Montauk being an ancient place, like really ancient.
I think so too.
Me too. Yeah. And so Long Island used to be a volcanic island chain like 50 million years ago, right? And when the glacier came 10,000 years ago, it dumped all this sand, like 1,000 feet of sand under our feet. And then there's bedrock below that. But there's also old volcanoes. So every time you have volcanoes, you have lava tubes in the center of the volcano, and they connect underneath. So
lava tubes.
I've
heard of that.
I've
heard of that.
Yeah,
actually, Jimmy Payne, who I did a show with him, he was part of the Montauk Project. Actually, he and James Rink. He told me that Mel's Hole is a lava tube. I never heard that word before. Yeah, this is the second time I've heard that in relation to a government program.
They're perfect for like mass transportation tunnels. They're like perfectly round almost because lava carves them. So, yeah, it's like a super highway underground, and it's it's strong because the fire like fortified it. So they're under Montauk too, and they connect across the whole country. So I believe if they knew that, maybe they'd be trying to get down that far. I mean, who knows what's down there? And it's never been proven if they can actually drill underwater, like under the seafloor, and make bases. It's been speculated since the 60s. I can't find anything solid on that. So I'm just going to guess that they did have a substantial thing down there. And I don't think they would just abandon it, unless they had to. So
too much money involved in that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
Totally. And Amy's in our chat. What's up, Amy? She said that you travel deeper than her. She was chased out. She actually said, Amy sent me a message. She said that she was chased out by the same security guard, probably that you got chased out by.
Yes.
And she lives up there. She spent her teenage years and, at Montauk running around just like you. You might have run into Amy, actually. We'll have to introduce you guys.
We might have walked past each other and never known it. Yeah. What's up, Amy? And we definitely get chased by the same guy, because I saw his face on the video, and we were like, this is the same guy. So this civilian used to act like he was in charge of all the police and everything. This one civilian? Yeah, and he's been written about in other blogs. So he's been like harassing people, chasing them, and sicking the cops on them. But he also seems to have authority over people. But when people have looked into him, they can't find out who he is or who is he employed by, why is he in charge. That's pretty cool. And Amy's more of a local than me. She's actually from Montauk, I believe, and I'm about 40 miles away, but it's like my second home. It pulls me there like a magnet, and I go there every chance I can. If I have gas money and time, I'm gonna go to Montauk.
Oh yes. We have one question. Okay, we only have a couple of minutes left tonight. Is there weird cult activity? And by that, I'm not sure Glenn means this exactly, but since the Montauk or the Stranger Things program came out, have there been a lot of tourists coming up there and a lot of like rituals, satanic rituals, whatever's going on, like they have at CERN? What's going on over there now?
There's definitely been for a long time cult activity there. I don't know the exact names of the groups. There's a few things, like for example, the head in the bunker that I told you about, which is gruesome, but that might have been done by people, not just an animal. Who would do that, But there's also, you can find online, they have there's a coven that does something at Turtle Cove on the beach at Montauk, and it's like I don't know what it was. I found some drama, like two covens fighting and they were doing rituals. But there's obviously people who do stuff. I was going to a bunker too, and it could have just been kids singing or practicing some kind of maybe a little darker kind of sounding tune, but it was almost like an a cappella group of 4 people singing this. It was on this holiday, December 18th, called Saturnalia. So I was going in the bunker.
Saturnalia.
Yeah,
that's
so
devil going, stuff. Yes. Okay.
That's what it sounded like to me. So I was going in this bunker, and at first I was going to say hi to them, and then I heard the nature of the music, and I said, nope, I think I'll come back. They're probably
kids,
but
you said tones and frequencies. Tones and frequencies
yes.
open portals. Okay.
Yes.
I'm just saying. I'm just gonna put that out there. And
did you ever see what words do to snowflakes?
No.
There's a whole book. A photographer plays different songs and yells at the snowflakes, and he tells them, "I love you." It makes this perfect.
Oh yes, I have seen that.
Yeah. Okay. And he says,
changes the whole composition.
Black hole. Yep.
It does.
So,
you can use things to open portals, just like there's certain old school horns and things you can blow, and they will attract bad dark entities and things like that, Brian. Oh my gosh. Wow. So
it's like one of those monk bowls.
Stuff I don't know. I mean, I'm talking about darker stuff, I guess. I don't know. So not sound bowls, those are good.
Yeah.
We just want high vibe and high frequency stuff, not like high frequency is going to bring anything bad in. But yeah, if you hear that next time, you run, okay? You run. You don't take off, protect yourself. Yeah. Brian, oh my gosh, this has been amazing. I could talk to you all night about this. We have come to the end of the hour. Oh my gosh. Please come back and hang out with me again. Yes.
I definitely will. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We have so much more to talk about. Where can people find you? What's your YouTube channel?
It's Montauk Is Strange. So Montauk Is Strange. And basically that's I'm going to focus all of I have an Instagram, which you can get to it from the YouTube page. So it's, there's a little link in the upper channel art, basically. But I'll dump pictures on Instagram, and I'm going to put most of the research, explorations, everything about Montauk that I can package up into different ideas on the YouTube channel. And if you need to get in touch with me as well, it's montaukisstrange@gmail.com.
At Gmail, y'all. Please go subscribe right now. Go ahead, Brian. Do you have any last words? What was that? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Just thank you so much. I appreciate, the talk about Montauk and everything. And helping me get past 1,000 and everything. That was awesome. It's
gosh, we got you past 1,000. You're just going to keep growing. Absolutely. Y'all, please, everybody watching right now, please go to Montauk Is Strange on YouTube. Go subscribe. He has an amazing YouTube channel. Brian, keep on researching and keep doing what you do. And when you get that book out, you better come back, and we're gonna promote it on all my shows. Okay.
Definitely.
Awesome.
I'll give you a copy, and I appreciate it.
Well, heck yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Heck yeah, Brian. Wonderful. Have a great night. Everybody go subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Okay. See ya. Okay, y'all. That was amazing. Okay. Don't forget that right after this show, Marquise, I was trying to think of what the show's called. It's called After Hours, y'all. Marquise has After Hours ready to go. I will see you guys tomorrow night. I have Cryptids of the Corn coming on Spaced Out Radio. We're going to talk about how mushrooms rule the world. I'm just kidding. We're going to talk about mycelium networks, okay? and how they're the gateways or the gatekeepers of the paranormal. It's going to be weird. It's going to be fun. You guys come join me same time, same place. I will see you guys tomorrow night. Bye, y'all.